You are watching The Real Economy. Hello and welcome. Since the beginning of the year, more than 4 million square meters of housing have been commissioned in Kazakhstan. This includes real estate built both by private equity companies and as a result of the implementation of the state housing program. Currently, the Republic is implementing its housing construction program scheduled to be complete before 2014. The first two housing programs in Kazakhstan were scheduled to be implemented between 2005 and 2008, and between 2008 and 2010. Funds allocated for the implementation of the latter have finally been used up this year. From January through to September, 132,200 square meters of housing were built in the country. According to official data, such housing will be completely put into operation by the end of this year. The two previous programs were designed only for limited circles of the population. This means that previously only civil servants, social workers and young families could receive housing. The housing program adopted this year says that everyone can participate in the project. The mechanism of implementing the program is made up of two directions. The first one is the system of housing savings. There are three ways of participating in the government program. The first one stipulates that for 3 years you need to accumulate an amount equal to 50% of the price of the housing you need. In this case, a loan is issued at 5% per annum for the remainder. Another option means you don't have to wait for 3 years to collect half the cost of your future apartment. In this case, the loan is issued at 8% per annum, but it will have to be paid off within 3 years, after which the interest rate again drops to 5%. The last option implies no deposit payment, but the loan will be issued at 11% per annum. It is also given for 3 years, after which the interest rate drops to 5% per annum. Today, about 200,000 citizens of Kazakhstan have so far applied for the state program loans. The government is allocating 80,840 million tenge to territorial administrations for the construction of housing under the state program. Regional administrations choose a construction company and are responsible for the quality of work. However, the Housing Construction Savings Bank of Kazakhstan will be dealing with the selling of the housing. At the same time, local authorities coordinate construction projects with the state-run bank. This enables them to meet the demands on the quality of the real estate. This kind of housing is being constructed now. In the previous state programs for housing construction, there were flats of the 4th category. The present-day program's housing is of the 3rd class. This means they have laminated flooring, a separate toilet, and a high ceiling. The quality is better, which is included in the construction properties. It is clear that better quality costs more money. The previous price of 56,500 tenge per square meter no longer recoups the expenses of the real estate developers, so the territorial administrations had to compensate the remaining share of the costs with funds from local budgets. However, time has shown that the use of such an approach cannot last long because it can badly affect other projects. Therefore, the new program has larger tariffs. The cost of 1 square meter is 90,000 tenge except for the citizens of Atarau, Astana, Aktau and Osmakamenogorsk, where the price should be up to 112,000 tenge. In the city of Almaty, the price should be up to 142.5 thousand tenge per square meter. It is also expected that some of the housing will be for rental, and some of it will be sold through mortgages. To date, according to the Agency for Construction and Housing, the state budget has already allocated 10 billion tenge for the construction of rental apartments. This money is expected to build nearly 133.5 thousand square meters of housing before the end of the year. The second direction is about mortgages, with nearly 29 billion tenge having been allocated. This housing can only be purchased but not rented. This will be built almost 46,000 square meters of housing. At the same time, the government will be in charge of laying all infrastructure mains. To date, the construction of all residential compounds has started virtually in all regions. Apartments in the 2 residential compounds have already been distributed in Almaty. At present, we are working on the reception of applications for the 3rd residential compound. We have received applications for 2 residential compounds for the city of Astana. The cost of 1 square meter in this case is 112,500 tenge. At the same time, even though deposit holders of the Housing Construction Savings Bank save their money for an apartment with a certain amount of square meters, they are not considered as shared construction participants. The bank passes the accumulated money to the construction company only after the construction is completed, commissioned, and all agreements are concluded. In other words, the bank's depositors avoid any risks. The construction company in charge will be building the residential facility at the expense of another source of funding. This money is allocated from the national budget to local executive bodies. In their turn, they transfer the money to the construction companies as a result of a tender, and depending on the stage of construction. After that, the money will be returned to the budget when people get mortgages from the bank. It is obvious that not everyone will be able to buy housing at a preferential rate. According to average estimates, there are from 3 to 5 borrowers of the Housing Construction Savings Bank for every apartment. Priority is given to those who join the housing savings system earlier. This means these depositors followed all the terms in the contract, including savings, available money, approaching a certain amount of money, and the contract term. Later on, we also look at the date of filing the application. All these factors are registered and influence the priority during the distribution. Those who have enough savings are not eager to wait in line. The housing construction program provides a different mechanism for these buyers. Here, the marginal price per square meter, which the property developer is selling, is 150,000 tenge, with an adjustment for inflation. But the maximum value for the buyer does not exceed 170,000 tenge. The government has allocated 589 billion tenge for the implementation of this direction. Pilot projects are being implemented now, which are worth about 18 billion tenge. This money can be used for the construction of 120 to 150,000 square meters of residential real estate. It is expected that the first housing will be commissioned in late 2012. We are now in the process of preparing construction documents. The State Commission has already made a decision on the allocation of money to develop 2 projects in Shymkent and Astana. Only 2 companies won this year's tender. BI Group is one of them. We are to get 11 billion tenge under the program for developing a residential area on the left bank of Astana. According to the results of the pilot part, the effectiveness of the program will be evaluated. The Samuruk Kazina Fund will spread the project around the country. The higher price for the buyer implies more comfortable flats. The quality requirements for such housing are considerably higher than the requirements set in construction regulations. First of all, this includes a more efficient heating system for tracking the loss of heat, increased insulation of facades, more efficient heating mains with a horizontal layout, energy-efficient windows, and so on. This is a great smart home. It will have a fully automated system of external illumination, heating and loss of hot and cold water. It will all be taken into account. However, the developers themselves say that even at the price of 150,000 tenge per square meter, their costs barely pay for themselves. Most of the players come to the market with their money, and they also use borrowed funds. In addition, the construction of housing for government contracts implies a longer implementation period. This means that we should use our money to buy a land site, build a residential facility on it, bring the entire communications infrastructure into it, and then sell the housing to the fund for a fixed price. What is attractive about this? This program is a big plus compared to others which were developed by the Kazakh government. This time it is a public-private partnership. In this case, not all of the property we have built will be sold to the fund. This means that part of the square meters that we build will be sold on the market at a free price. The construction company can sell up to 50% of the built apartments at market prices. The other half will be sold to the people who applied for the state program of housing construction. In addition, the developer keeps all the commercial property and car parks. The pilot part of our project has a total value of about 16 billion tenge. 11 billion is to be allocated by the real estate fund of the Samuruk Kazina Fund, and we will invest 5 billion from our own capital. This includes both borrowed funds and the funds of the company. The total size is about 100,000 square meters in terms of apartments. The total area is 160,000 square meters, and it will include 7 to 9 story brick houses, fully equipped with all central communications, which is approximately 1,600 flats. According to the Kazakh Statistical Agency, the share of the public sector in the total construction market in the country is only 4.6%. The rest of the market is real estate built by private resources. About 6 million square meters of housing is put into operation in the country every year. From January through to September this year, 4,200,000 square meters of residential real estate was built in the country. This market received over 281 billion tenge's worth of investment from all sources of funding. This is 28% higher than last year. However, in 4 regions, which are the cities of Almaty and Astana, and Pavlodar and North Kazakhstan regions, the volume of the commissioned housing has not reached the level of 2010. In the South Kazakhstan region, housing construction has increased twofold. In eastern Kazakhstan by 1.5 times, and in Akmala it grew by 1.4 times compared to last year. In general, the construction industry is one of the basic indicators of economic development of the country. Therefore, the World Bank survey called Doing Business must take into account the criterion of obtaining a building permit. This year, Kazakhstan has moved up 11 positions in the ratings and is now in 47th place. Speaking of ratings and assessments, this year has been very productive for Kazakhstan. For instance, Kazakhstan has joined the top 3 fastest growing economies of the decade, composed by Ernst & Young and Oxford Economics. Recently, the international rating agency Standard & Poor's raised Kazakhstan's long-term sovereign credit rating from BBB to BBB+. An increased credit rating of the Development Bank of Kazakhstan is a positive sign for its borrowers. We have asked our guest today about how the loan portfolio of the DBK will be changing and what its quality is now. Today's real economy expert is Ulf Vokorka, the Chief Country Officer of Deutsche Bank in Kazakhstan. He also serves as an independent director of the Development Bank of Kazakhstan. Hello. My first question relates directly to the loan portfolio. Its volume and quality includes hopeless, standard and problem loans. From the latest reports, I remember that for the first 9 months, the bank had the indices that are slightly above the average ones for the entire banking system. There are approximately 25% of problem loans and bad ones are just in one indicator. It also means that 75% are normal loans. This is good because the bank has successfully fulfilled its function of being the initiator of new projects. How will the volume of the loan portfolio change? Are you going to build it, and in what period? There is a long-term plan which includes a 30% increase in the loan portfolio over the next 2 years. This means that we need to work through new projects faster than ever. The DBK has great plans. They are going to be a key lender for the state program for accelerated industrial and innovative development of the economy. They have everything you need to do this: sufficient capital, experienced people and developed processes. In fact, there is nothing that can prevent the bank from performing such a role as a major lender. It is known that most of the projects of the DBK are startups. How are you going to implement the strategy in the future? Will you continue funding startup businesses or focus more attention on existing projects? Yes, this is the objective of any development institution, making and help new entrepreneurs develop their businesses. In fact, those who have already achieved something, they must have other sources of funding. There are 2 or 3 banks which serve them and accompany their major investment projects. I can see a niche for the DBK among new entrepreneurs who have not yet reached anything. Mr. Vokorka, thank you very much for this interview. Good luck. You have been watching The Real Economy. Join us next week at the same time on the Caspianet satellite channel. The recorded version of this program is also available on our website at www.caspianet.kz. Goodbye.